first talk of the day, we have some of the nice people here from the release team who would like to tell you more.
Yes. Hello, I'm Paul, and this is Graham. We will take the honors today on behalf of the release team. The others were a bit afraid of you, so they'll be staying in the room and hopefully answer the questions from there, if there are any. I don't think this talk will be 45 minutes, but if you prepare lots of questions, then we can run into that time. First, a very small introduction. Who are we? There's 9 people on our team. Actually, there's people in the audience that want to join, so maybe we'll extend soon. Emilio, who's here, yep, right there. Adam, I think he left home not feeling extremely well. Julian, who's not here. Kibi, Ivo, who's probably missed his bus. Jonathan behind the cameras. Me, Graham, and Sebastian. That's who we are. Now, what's our task? Probably most of you know, at least I assume, we oversee the release, preparing the next release in testing, and doing the point releases for stable and not stable. There's a link to the last delegation if you... It's a bit more extensive description there. We use this meeting here in Cambridge to hold a sprint. It was the first time that I met 2 of the people in my team, and actually for the first time was able to put a face to a name. So thank you very much for that opportunity. That was great. We had a whole bunch of discussions. I'll flash a couple. Not going into too much details because, of course, that's boring, and I think we'll send out a bits also later with a bit more details. But what we particularly started with, on the internals of the team. So most of you have probably seen that we do multiple things, and not everybody does everything. So we discussed how to make that clear, to not feel too much pressure that you have to do things that you're actually not interested in. So that's keeping healthy. One of the things related to that is maybe some of you are lurking on our list. It has lots and lots of traffic, mostly just copies from the BTS. We probably want to get rid of that flow of BTS on that list such that we can use the list for more useful discussion without it drowning in stuff that and missing interesting topics. Which probably will also lead that the list is more open for those kind of discussions because it misses that heavy traffic. One thing that we spend some time on is new people. We're mostly always open for new people, so if you're interested, then please come to us. But we also recognize that we've not been extremely well in being sort of open and welcome to new people, so we thought of a couple of ways where we discussed ways of improving that. One of the things we'll try to set up, or at least wiki page or something, where describe a couple of the easy beginner tasks to get started. Of course, it's much nicer to code on Brittany than create a wiki, but we'll try anyway. We also talked about architecture qualification, and particularly we spent some time on i386, what our view is of the near future of that architecture. We have a proposal that we probably say that we would not mind if the kernel team stops building a kernel for i386, such that it becomes really a multi-arch architecture, but particularly initially not as extreme as Ubuntu did it, so all the rest of the things that can live in use space can still stay there. More details will follow in the bits. a bit of an internal thing was the workflows around the release and the point release to particularly make it less time boxed or the everything at the last moment. That was a discussion what was a bit out of my comfort zone, so I cannot really reflect what was discussed there in a proper way. I hope I can understand from the notes later on. Some of you may have been at the BOF that I had in in Kosovo on a proposal to go to multiple tiers in the architecture on the different architectures. We spent quite some time on discussing that, and multiple problems have been found in the proposal, so I'm not going to pursue that part myself anymore, particularly about the official side of the archive. If porters are interested in the port side of enhancing the suites, I'm still willing to help with supporting from the Brittany side if that's wanted and needed, but on the, let's say, DSA, FTP master official architectures, I will not continue this proposal. And the last topic that we discussed quite a bit is the freeze policy, but I'll not comment on that today. That's a boring recap of what we did here. Now it's up to you to ask questions if you have any. Workflow.
So this isn't a question. I'm just a satisfied customer from multiple sides of the release team. I think you're doing an excellent job. Please continue to improve, of course. One of the things you sometimes have to do is make decisions that people don't like, and you do that in an exemplary way. So thank you very much for leading by a very good example.
Thank you.
Hi. You were mentioning onboarding new team members and some sort of easy tasks that new team members can perform. Would you have any example about those?
Well, so most there's actually two classes. It's at least the part where we're handling unstable and testing. It's transitions. Well, actually, that is, I think, mostly easy done by most of the time one person, because that's making sure that things don't get entangled, and then typically a couple of things are ongoing, and I think that's automated. During the freeze, of course, there's a lot of unblock requests, and just looking at what the request is, and if it looks sane, having somebody else looking at anybody can do that. It doesn't need to be a team member, but just looking at the request and saying, well, this looks sane and not, and just commenting, hey, I checked this and it looks sane, or if you know the code base, and you could even say, well, this doesn't look right. That's already awesome contribution. At the stable release manager side of things, actually the same thing applies. You can just look at what it encompasses and comment on the request.
For that particularly, all the stable update requests are bugs, so they're easy to isolate into individual requests. There are published criteria for what's going to be acceptable, plus exceptions can always be made in the right circumstances. The time-consuming part of all of that is reviewing the patch, assessing the criteria, deciding what it is, and coordinating the upload from the maintainer. Anybody can jump into that and get going. Nothing that anybody does there can't be reversed until the very end of the process. So chiming in with those, looking at the patch, coming to a provisional decision, and getting the maintainer to upload if you're confident about it would be great to get stuck into, because that's the time-consuming part. Flicking the switch at the end is trivial.
And then I think we covered the most obvious things that happen a lot of the times. Of course, working on Brittany is stuff that is probably a bit challenging for a beginner. So if you love doing those kind of things in Python, you're welcome, of course, but I wouldn't consider that the first task.
Question from IRC is perhaps, can you remind us how a bug is classified as critical and how a bug is non-critical?
Well, first of all, the maintainer of a package has the discretion to always classify something as RC or not. So the maintainer, in principle, is the first point that decides that. On top of that, we have the authority to declare something if a maintainer doesn't think so. So you can always come to us if that needs judgment from us. On our website, we do have a list that we call canonical, although I wouldn't be so confident calling it like that, where we have all the criteria where we say this a package needs to meet, and if it doesn't meet that, that's RC in that sense per definition. So release.admin.org/testing/RC policy, maybe .html or .text or something, that has the list of canonical requirements.
And I think Holger is suggesting if it's non-reproducible as well, for reproducible builds.
Sure. I'm having lots of discussions with Holger at the moment where recently I extended Brittany to actually report in the Brittany output if a package, particularly if it regresses, because as a release manager, I'm currently mostly interested in regressions. We will probably soon get more aggressive on that. So yes, make sure that your package is not reproducible, because you get penalized if it becomes already reproducible later.
I'm sure that's not the answer Holger was looking for.
No. The good thing is I'll be able to give you a bounty if you are reproducible. So, yeah.
No, it's definitely a thing to get us all reproducible, and regressions are definitely a bad thing. Let's try and avoid them.
Yep.
Nothing else on ILC at the moment.
How are we doing architecture-wise at this point? You touched on i386.
Yes.
I know there's been a lot of worries about MIP64EL. Are we expecting new architectures for Trixie?
RISC
5.
V46. Yeah.
Sure.
Actually, I'm not sure if people are waiting for us, but we're waiting for them to say we're ready. I mean, it's not up to us for the next action, but
Sure.
I expect that soon. Yes.
Yeah. What I've seen from the build completion, they're way up there with the release architectures.
Yeah.
It's just a case of flicking a switch.
Yes. For the release team, it doesn't start until there's actually a testing suite for that architecture. And that's
sure.
not up to me even.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Do we think Loom 64 might make it?
I have no idea. I didn't really look at them, but sure, there's plenty of time. So if they progress well enough.
Okay, cool.
And yes, MIPS 46EL is a worry.
Oh, that's a new one. You mean MIP64EL? Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, what are your pain points on your various workflow? I mean, your stable release updates, there are testing migrations, and on blocks, I would say. Those are the three biggest responsibilities in your team. I'm asking because we're trying to build Debuzzine, which we're going to present this afternoon. And one of the main goals is to help various Debian teams streamline their workflows and make it easier for them. So I'm really interested in knowing what could be useful for you as the release team in those 3 areas. Or what are you suffering from in your day-to-day work, if you want?
Well, I wear 2 caps, at least for the release team, on some of that. My biggest problem is maintaining the fleet of hosts for out-of-package test CI. But that's not a responsibility of the team. That's my other cap. From the release team point of view, I think that's just incoming data, and that works. I don't know. Have you anything?
I mean, is it, for example, is it convenient for you to look at so many different places to take decisions for own blogs, or?
I didn't get that question.
I mean, when you take decisions to accept an update, you usually have to look, I assume, at least so, in different places to check the results of the tests, diff reviews. You're doing them on your own, on your site, I assume, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so for creating diffs, we have a tool on the main host that we have, and that works well. So that's not a big thing that I can think of. Well, one of the things that brought me to the release team is particularly integrating these kind of QA flows, like we've done with PO parts and what we've done with out-of-package test, and what we've done recently with reproducible builds. I don't have things at the top of my mind, but we could add more if people think, hey, this is cool to test, and we can expose that. Well, maybe one thing that comes into mind is Lintian. We could output also on Lintian regressions or something if people would be interesting. There was another thing not too long ago. These are more new things, I would say, than things that we currently have that don't work well.
Or maybe things that could make it easier to have multiple persons work on the same updates. I mean, you were looking for people to give feedback as trainee or whatever, new person. Right now it's all happening on the bug tracker, I assume.
Yep.
But it's not very contextual. I don't know. But is there room on that side, maybe? I mean, we're all getting used to reviewing merge requests, for instance, on Salsa. And when you review a debdiff, it can be interesting to be able to leave comment in place for others to check before they approve the update or whatever. Is that kind of thing that could be useful?
Yeah, well, there have been several unblock requests that said, well, I'm not going to provide the diff you request. You have all the diffs here on Salsa, and there's the results, and there's the thing. That was really annoying to say, well, but we ask a diff because that's our workflow. So
what you're saying
I guess shifting a workflow completely is fine, but the most important thing is that you have one workflow. You don't want to switch, that person or that group of people do that and those people do that, and you have to think how to get your information.
Okay. So maybe what we can do is probably help more the maintainers to provide the right stuff for you in the expected format that you want it. Okay.
I guess.
Lots of stuff to discuss yet. Thank you.
It feels a bit like a problem that solving a problem I don't have, but
okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious to know if you had real pain points. If you
Maybe
haven't,
Jonathan
so good.
Comes something to mind.
This one consequence of going quite a number of years at a time without new team members is that we get very used to the established workflows. It's hard to think about how you might do it differently because we think we've made it as efficient as we can. So this is probably something to go away and think about rather than try and come up with ideas here and now. But B, somebody outside who comes in and says, why do you do it that way, is actually probably a helpful thing to happen. So I would hope that this effort of making it easier for new people to get stuck in will start to provoke some of those questions. Why do you do it like that? That takes 12 times as long and makes the maintainer's life hard, is a really good data point for us to respond to, as opposed to how can life be better as you do it at the moment, which is kind of, well, we've written the tools to make how we do it now work well. So dreaming up ideas to improve those is kind of hard and probably not very productive.
Yeah, thanks for all the work. Have you thought about integrating or making on these integrations OpenQA part of this with the Debian installer and maybe testing migrations from one release to another one?
That's an interesting extension. It's similar to what we do with auto-package test. I think I've mentioned it to Phil once or twice, but not been extremely motivated to make that connection already, I think. Maybe you can comment on that, or... Well, you didn't raise your ears. OpenQA, the question was, integrate DI testing into the migration flow.
The question was what about automated DI testing?
And integrating that similar to what we did with auto-package test, trigger on uploads and...
Well, I do that sort of stuff. I haven't got enough workers at the moment, so it's I need to work out a way of dynamically firing up workers because it's already collapsing under the load as it is. So adding more jobs to it would just break it completely. But I'd like to do it.
Yeah.
So if I can work out how to do the spinning up new workers. And the problem with workers is that they need to have nested VMs to be able to run the jobs, which limits what you can where you can actually run the workers.
So it's mostly in the pipeline. It's the ideas are there. It just hasn't happened yet.
It's about round to it.
Small bug that hit the the images release team last point release, I think, was that there was a security fix that hadn't quite gone into the release when it froze a week ahead of the point release, and that caused us a problem, I think, with SSL or whatever on the day. So we had to make sure that the updates process worked for the updates images. Is it practicable to effectively keep security running and freeze it on, I don't know, the night before the release or immediately before the release team actually release the release, at which point the CD images team pick it up afterwards?
I can pick that up. I'm not familiar with the situation you described, but in general, security updates released as DSAs come through the same the same approval process to enter the stable point release as any other update. So when things are frozen in the week ahead, that includes the security updates from reaching the point release. Now, I don't know what happened on this occasion, but that's how the process works in general.
So to explain this particular issue, and I think we've now actually solved it, we had we previously would build the live images on release day, and live build was configured explicitly to pick up security updates. So it would potentially get things that were a week later than whatever else was in the release. And we ended up with breakage where the configuration of the installation from live would have some things from the live image itself, but then they wouldn't match on versions, which is what was available elsewhere on the media. It's complicated, and we've solved the problem, so don't worry about it.